Hello everyone! Today we'll be walking through phase one of the design process for our vocabulary learning tool, Memorii. To begin the design process, we started out by conducting a competitor analysis and a handful of user interviews. Through this research, we were able to identify our primary persona, Peyton. Peyton is a full-time nursing student who's also working part-time as a medical assistant. Due to her hectic schedule, she's often finding herself studying on the weekends, in between classes, or on breaks at work. On top of her time constraints, Peyton struggles with maintaining focus and staying engaged while studying, especially with the variety of classes she's studying for. Each of these classes pose a different challenge for Peyton, some requiring the need to memorize spelling, others requiring being able to point to different parts of the body just from a photo. On top of this, as a nursing student, she finds herself studying complex vocabulary, especially when she's learning new drug names. It's important that she commits these terms to her long-term memory, as later down the road, someone's life will depend on her knowledge. Peyton finds she's most successful at studying when she is using a tool that is repetitive, well-organized, easy to use, and designed to save her time. She also prefers a tool that caters to her learning styles, which are visual and audio. She also needs to be able to provide as much context as possible so that she can fully understand her vocabulary in a real-world setting. After our initial research stage, we identified an overarching mission statement that broadly captures our primary persona's goals and motivations. As you can see here, our mission statement focuses on our users' struggles with lack of time, inability to stay engaged and focused, and the need for a variety of learning styles and classes. With our users' goals, motivations, and pain points in mind, we developed two main wireframes, both of which were tested in a round of usability testing. First up is the Create a New Card wireframe. Right off the bat, we identified several key issues our users faced when using the app. To start, our users were initially confused on how to navigate to the Create function, and often we found that they were clicking into an existing deck rather than utilizing our quick edit/create icon, which you see in the navigation panel. There were a few main issues here. While our existing decks did provide a function to edit or create cards and add them to that deck, this route did not allow users to accomplish our main goal, which was to create a brand new card. Once users were able to navigate into creating a new card, our users began questioning, where's the save button? Expressing that they either weren't sure that their changes were being saved or that they wanted to exit without saving. As you can see in frame 4, the only options provided were the back button or an X. Users were also confused by the Done button, expressing their dissatisfaction when there was a step beyond Done. Lastly, through observing our users' actions, I noticed that users were confused by the tap to edit instructions, and instead were shown clicking the text rather than the card. And our users were consistently using back buttons to navigate home rather than clicking the logo, which would have taken them straight home. Next, we have the Study Flashcards wireframe. A few key problems our users began with was navigating to the study function. Just as with our create icon, our users were confused by the light bulb icon. To make matters worse, when clicking on the light bulb, our users immediately turned away as they weren't sure what the function was for. One of our users stated that they thought the light bulb was a help button, and that once clicking into it, they then thought it was a way to organize decks into folders. Once our users successfully navigated into flashcard mode, the next road bump was their understanding of the stars, or knowledge level filters. Most users assumed this was level of difficulty. Although it is a level of difficulty in a way, the function was initially intended for users as a way to circle back to the cards they need to review again and track their progress. The last two issues identified were the audio button and the X button. Most users assumed the audio button was a volume button and not a way to hear the word played back. The X button appeared to be missed by all 4 users we tested, as each of them used the back button to navigate back to home. As mentioned before, we had a few errors on the home page in the clarity of our icons. Most of these errors will be fixed once we have a higher fidelity prototype. However, for now, we hypothesize our users' navigation issues would be fixed by adding labels. Additionally, we created a plus sign button so that users could create a new card or folder in the area of the screen we found they were most drawn to. With our users' problems in mind, we recommended several improvements to the prototype. As you can see here in the Create a Card wireframe and the Study Flashcards wireframe, we decided to go ahead and add a home button. The reason for this is that we found that multiple users were using the back button rather than using our logo to navigate home. So we just wanted to simplify the process for everyone. Next up, to solve the issue of confusion around the tap to edit function, we decided to add in the word card to tap card to edit. We hypothesized that this will solve the problem of any confusion on where to tap on the screen. Next up, you'll see that we added next buttons and replacing our done buttons and our start buttons. We've hypothesized that this will solve the issue of any confusion around when the task is actually complete. Next, we added a save button so that users can save or exit without saving. And when you move down to the Study Flashcards wireframe, you'll see that we made some clarifications on selecting the deck that you would like to study. So just adding in that word study there will solve any confusion, or we hypothesize that will solve any confusion around what this screen is for. Moving into the flashcard filters, we decided to add a label in there that says flashcard filters so that there's no confusion around what this selection menu is for. We also decided to add in some language around what the knowledge level filters are. So adding in a level 0, which is beginner level. So this is when you might not have studied a flashcard deck before. So that would also be a study all cards. Then we have the 3 levels of knowledge, so intermediate, advanced, and expert. This will allow our users to customize their learning experience and track their knowledge along their way. Next up, I added in the word rank knowledge level. This is just a little bit of a point of clarification so that users know that this is a function that they input themselves. I also added in a question icon for any questions that they may come across when ranking their knowledge level. So as you can see here, we have a blank star, which is beginner level. So that's if you've not ranked your knowledge level before, and then 1, 2, and 3 stars for the various levels of knowledge levels after that. Lastly, on this page, you see that the button is no longer an X, it is exit flashcards, and it's a little bit bigger. So hopefully going forward, users will see this button and be able to navigate accordingly. So what's next? What we've been working on recently is our onboarding tour. As you can see here, here's a quick snapshot of what these wireframes look like. It goes through each of the steps of the navigation functionalities and highlights the key features that it applies to in each of these tasks. So as you see here, we have an X button to exit the tour or tap to continue to move on to the next step in the tour. Next steps after this, we'll be conducting a usability test for this onboarding tour and making any revisions necessary. Throughout this process, we had a lot of pros and a lot of cons. The process overall was very exciting. It was a great learning opportunity. Some of the key highlights for the pros, what went well. Starting each phase by reviewing my research was very helpful and allowed me to put myself in the shoes of the user. I also found that it's better to over-explain than under-explain. For example, in the icons section, having those simple icons without an explanation or an onboarding tour did not allow my users to properly navigate the app accordingly. So I'll be carrying out that pro into my future projects. Next up, always asking why. So when conducting my usability tests, I often found that following up the question or the scenario task with asking, okay, well, why did you do that, or why do you feel that way, allowed me to open up a lot of insight that I otherwise would not have received. Next up, provide multiple entrance points. This is just so that users can navigate a certain task, a certain scenario, in a way that suits them best. So for example, having a way to create a new card straight from the recent decks area, as well as having the navigation bar at the bottom with the icon, the edit create icon. Lastly, always give 2 navigation options. This lesson that I learned was in the save and exit without saving, as well as providing a next and a back button. Cons, some struggles that I came across throughout this process was overcomplicating the design thinking. I felt that I was taking more than enough steps to accomplish certain tasks. And I also found myself being a little bit of a perfectionist. A big lesson that I've learned throughout this process is that the whole point of creating prototypes and testing it is that your app is not supposed to be perfect on the first try. And it will go a lot faster, and you'll learn a lot more about what your users actually want and need to solve their problems and to accomplish their goals. So just trying not to make it so perfect and let the users speak for themselves. Next up, avoid redundancies in design. A few problems that I came across, which I was able to correct before my usability tests, between the initial prototype stages, wireframe prototype stages, I realized that I had a few redundancies in screens. So it was just taking users an extra step or two to solve the same problem or accomplish the same task. So just going forward, be sure to check myself, go through it each time by myself, as well as with my users, to verify that I don't have any redundancies. Lastly, don't spend too much time on the initial sketches. I found that I was, again, being a perfectionist when it came to these initial sketches and tried to get it right the first time, when in reality, every time I would redraw them, something else would improve. So really just, focus in on getting something down on paper and continuing to revise and improve on top of that. And last up, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate you listening in on this presentation, and looking forward to where the next iteration of Memorii will be. Thanks.